Which is better, the ZTE Blade A7 Prime or the Moto E6? Well, in this video, we're going to find out. Hi everyone, this is Kevin here, coming at you with my comparison between the ZTE Blade A7 Prime and the Moto E6. Now, I think this video is especially going to be interesting because both of these phones are compatible with Visible's free swap program. So essentially you can get either of these two phones for free over at Visible if you swap in one of your old Android devices. So very awesome. And then if you do not do the swap program, you can actually buy either of these two phones at Visible for just $99. Now, if you're not familiar with what Visible is a new and upcoming carrier owned by Verizon, and essentially for just $40 a month, you can get unlimited talk, text, data, and hotspot. So if you do want to learn more about Visible, check out the other videos on my channel about it because I've already made quite a few of them. But if you do want to do that really awesome swap program, you can do it with either of these two devices, and you can get started by going to Visible's online store. Now, the ZTE Blade A7 Prime is exclusive to Visible, but the Moto E6 is available at a variety of different carriers. So if you're not with Visible, then you might want to get this phone for a different carrier. Now, the ZTE Blade A7 Prime features a 6.09-inch display at 720p with a 19.5 by 9 aspect ratio. The display itself is LCD, but does look really good. I think it looks nice and crisp and clear with great colors. Now, the Moto E6 features a smaller 5.45-inch display, and it's also at 720p, and it's also LCD as well, but features an 18 by 9 aspect ratio. So a bit of a smaller display here with the Moto E6, that's for sure. A little bit of a different aspect ratio as well. With the 19.5 by 9 aspect ratio, you're getting a little bit of a slimmer but taller design, whereas with the Moto E6, it's a bit shorter but wider. Another big difference too is that with the Moto E6, the corners on the display are a bit more squared off. And then of course up top with the ZTE Blade A7 Prime, we are getting a teardrop notch. And with the Moto E6, there is no notch. And you do get pretty big bezels, especially on the top and bottom. So kind of a more traditional design with the Moto E6 compared to what we're getting with the ZTE Blade A7 Prime. Now the display on the Moto E6 also looks very good despite it being just 720p. So I think you're going to be happy with the displays in either of these two devices. Now up top here on the phones, we have 5 megapixel front-facing cameras. So you're going to get the same megapixel count no matter which phone you go with. The ZTE Blade A7 Prime features 32 gigabytes of internal storage with SD card expansion. And with the Moto E6, we're getting half the amount of internal storage at 16 gigabytes, but we also get micro SD card expansion. Neither of these two phones feature wireless charging. And with the ZTE Blade A7 Prime, we do get a fingerprint sensor on the back. So that's nice and quick, very convenient there. But unfortunately with the Moto E6, not only is there no fingerprint sensor on the back, but there's also no face unlock. So you are limited to using your PIN code if you want to unlock the device. So that's definitely a bit annoying. Thankfully, the haptic feedback is very good though with this device. So that's one benefit, I suppose. But I do wish that this phone did have a fingerprint sensor on the back. That would have been a great feature. In fact, with the Moto E6, it actually has a removable battery. So you can pop off this back panel here to access the battery, SIM card, and SD card slot. Now on the back side of these two devices, we have single camera setups. So no portrait mode with either of the two phones. We get a 16 megapixel main camera with the ZTE Blade A7 Prime. And with the Moto E6, we get a 13 megapixel main camera. With the ZTE Blade A7 Prime, we're getting 3 gigabytes of RAM and the MediaTek Helio A22. And with the Moto E6, we're getting less RAM at just 2 gigabytes and the Qualcomm Snapdragon 435. Now I do think the Qualcomm Snapdragon 435 is a better processor than the MediaTek Helio A22, but I did run an Antutu benchmark test with both devices and they actually score very closely. So with the ZTE Blade A7 Prime, I got a score of 72743 compared to a score of 71285 with the Moto E6. So pretty much close to identical scores there. You can see that with the CPU score, we actually are getting a slightly better score with the ZTE Blade A7 Prime, which is interesting, but it's actually really close. So I suppose in some ways, the MediaTek Helio A22 does benchmark better than the Qualcomm Snapdragon 435. So you just have to keep that in mind, but expect to get pretty close performance with both devices. Now, thankfully, both phones do feature Android 9 Pie and a pretty much stock version of the software. So both phones feature software that is very well optimized, so you are going to get really good performance. Now, video recording with both devices maxes out at 1080p at 30 frames per second. With the ZTE Blade A7 Prime, we're getting a 3200 mAh internal battery. And with the Moto E6, we're getting a 3000 mAh removable battery. So the battery with the Moto E6 is a little bit smaller, but it is removable. So technically, you could buy multiple batteries and replace them throughout the day. I'm not sure how many people would actually do that in real life, but it is an option. Now, taking a look at the left side of the two devices, on the ZTE Blade A7 Prime, we have the slot for the micro SD card and SIM card, and there's nothing on the left side of the Moto E6. Then on the right side on both phones, we have the volume button and power button. Then on the top of the devices, we have a noise canceling microphone and a 3.5mm headphone jack on both. And then on the bottom of the two phones on the ZTE Blade A7 Prime, we have the microphone and USB-C port for charging and data transfer. On the bottom of the Moto E6, we have the microphone and we have a micro USB port for charging and data transfer. So the Moto E6 does feature micro USB, which is a bit of a disappointment, that's for sure. And then on the back side of the two devices, with the ZTE Blade A7 Prime, we have the fingerprint sensor and we have the speaker. Also, this material on the back side of the Blade A7 Prime is this really cool kind of pebbly look, whereas with the Moto E6, we have the camera module, we have the flash, we have the Motorola logo, and that's it. And it's kind of this like frosted plastic look on the back side here. So I think both devices do look nice on the back. What's nice too with both phones is that neither of them are fingerprint magnets, so that's always a great thing to see. Let's now do a speed test comparison between these two devices. I know that earlier in the video we saw that they both had a very similar Antutu benchmark score, but I'm definitely interested to see how that actually results in like real life performance. So I'm really curious to see if one phone is faster than the other. Let's start by pulling up the camera. So 1, 2, 3, go. And it looks like the ZTE Blade A7 Prime was definitely quicker at pulling up the camera. Let's go to Google Chrome. 1, 2, 3, go. And the ZTE Blade A7 Prime was quicker at pulling up Google Chrome as well. Let's go to yahoo.com. 1, 2, 3, go. Looks like the Moto E6 was a little bit quicker at pulling up Yahoo, but not much quicker. Let's go to engadget.com. 1, 2, 3, go. And the ZTE Blade A7 Prime was quicker at pulling up Engadget. You can also see a side-by-side here comparing how the two displays look. So it looks like with the ZTE Blade A7 Prime, the display is a bit brighter compared to the Moto E6, despite the brightness being turned up to 100% on both devices. So nice, smooth scrolling with both phones. We'll go to this article right now. 1, 2, 3, go. And it looks like the Blade A7 Prime was quicker at pulling up the article. Pinch to zoom is nice and smooth on both devices, so that's great to see. For this next segment, we're going to test to see which device is the better speakers. So this is a decibel meter here. It's going to pick up the maximum decibel reading with both of these phones. I'm going to play the first 7 seconds of the same video on each device, and we're going to see which device is louder. We're going to start with the Blade A7 Prime. Which is better, the Samsung Galaxy A20s or the Samsung Galaxy A20? Well, in this video... So I got a maximum reading here of 101.6 with the ZTE Blade A7 Prime. Now we'll do the Moto E6. Which is better, the Samsung Galaxy A20s or the Samsung Galaxy A20? Well, in this video, we're going to find... And with the Moto E6, I got a score of 92.2, so a bit lower here with that device. But I thought that the quality of the sound seemed to be a bit better though with the Moto E6 compared to the Blade A7 Prime, but both phones do have very decent speaker quality despite their low price tags. So which phone is the better choice? From my experience of comparing the two, I don't really see any reason to get the Moto E6 over the ZTE Blade A7 Prime. I think the biggest deal breaker, especially for the Moto E6, is that there is no fingerprint sensor on the back. That is a feature that I use all the time with the ZTE Blade A7 Prime, and it's certainly a feature that I miss with the Moto E6. Another disadvantage with the Moto E6 is that we are getting half the amount of internal storage at 16 gigabytes compared to the 32 gigabytes of internal storage that we get with the ZTE Blade A7 Prime. So that in itself is another reason to go with the Prime. You're also getting a bigger display with the Prime, and you're getting an extra gigabyte of RAM. And it is debatable whether or not the MediaTek Helio A22 is better than the Qualcomm Snapdragon 435, but I would say that the two are about equal. So definitely let me know what you think of these two devices. Give the video a thumbs up if you liked it, and let me know if you're planning on buying either of these two phones over at Visible. But this is Kevin here. This is the ZTE Blade A7 Prime, and this is the Moto E6, and I will see you in the next video.